Hello, welcome back to Mrs. Torres' YouTube channel. Today, we are going to talk about the converse of the Pythagorean theorem. So the converse kind of means the opposite. So if you remember, the Pythagorean theorem says, if we have a right triangle, then a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The converse says, if we have a triangle and a squared plus b squared equals c squared is true, I should say is, little typo there, then the triangle is a right triangle. So let's just look at two examples, and I'm going to actually draw a third one for us. So let's look at this right triangle here. We have 15, 8, and 17. So we need to see if a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now, normally when we're using the Pythagorean theorem, we know that C is our hypotenuse. That's across from our right angle. But we don't have a right angle here, right? But we have to think, what's our possible hypotenuse? Well, the hypotenuse is also the longest side. So between 8 feet, 15 feet, and 17 feet, 17 is the longest. So that is my possible hypotenuse. So let's plug in our values. 8 squared plus 15 squared. Now, we don't know if this is equal yet, so we can't really use an equal sign. So what I'm going to do is put a little question mark over top. So that's like saying, does 8 squared plus 15 squared equal 17 squared? Well, let's find out. 8 squared plus 15 squared gives us 289. Does that equal 17 squared? 289. It sure does. So that means, yes, this is a right triangle. And then if you think about it, this would be my right angle, right? Because it's across from my now confirmed hypotenuse. All right, let's look at number 2 here. So we've got 6, 8, and 10. What's our possible hypotenuse? Well, 10's the longest. So 6 squared plus 8 squared. Does it equal 10 squared? So we've got 6 squared plus 8 squared gives us 100. 10 squared also gives us 100. So that means both of these are right triangles. And here would be my right angle. Now I want to show you one thing. Let's say I have this triangle here. Let's say my hypotenuse is 2 root 7 feet. Let's say this leg is the square root of 11 feet, and this leg is, let's just say 7 feet. So, and I'm asking you, is this a right triangle? Well, we use the converse of the Pythagorean theorem, so we need to see if a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now, up here we had all whole numbers. They're pretty easy to compare and see which one's the longest. Here we have some square roots. So these are kind of hard to compare, like which one's bigger, 7 or 2 root 7? Kind of hard to tell, right? So what we're going to do is to compare all of these, we're going to turn our square roots into decimals. So 2 square root of 7 gives us 5.3. And then the square root of 11 gives us 3.3. Now, we're not going to use these numbers when we do our calculations. It's just to figure out which is our A, which is our B, which is our C. So which is our possible hypotenuse? It looks like 7 is our longest, right? Between 3.3, 5.3, and 7, 7 is our largest. Now, we do not use those decimals when we plug it in to a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now we're going to use our roots. So let's plug it in. This is our possible c, right? So we've got the square root of 11 squared plus 2 root 7 squared. Does that equal 7 squared? Now, I've said it over and over again. Taking the square root and squaring something are opposite operations, which means the square root of 11 squared just gives me 11. If you forget that, you can always put it in your calculator. The square root of 11 squared, there it is, 11. Plus, now 2 root 7 squared. We can just type that one in our calculator. We just got to make sure we have the proper amount of parentheses. So parenthesis 2 root 7. Now my calculator is a little older, so I need to put a second set of parentheses there. If you have a newer calculator, remember you just have to hit the right arrow to get outside up from underneath your square root and put the parenthesis and then square it. So 28. Does that equal 7 squared, which is 49? If we add 11 and 28, that'll give us 39. 39 does not equal 49. So to say that they're not equal, we're going to put a slash through there. So that tells us that no, this triangle that I drew over here is not a right triangle. All right, that's it for today. See you later.